the challenge gave me lots of energy and lots of like posts every day and people were replying. So it was a little faster. And then it gets really quiet after and you're like, am I doing this right? Like, is something wrong? But no, it's like, this is the slower pace again that I've asked for, right? So like, I really think knowing that you have a strategy in place and trusting it is really important, because you can then again second guess yourself if you're not thinking back to like, what was the goal of this? How is this aligned to supporting the people in this community? And what am I doing to make sure that I'm still sticking to those values?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for watching today. Super excited to be with Carrie Brummer talking about community and all the ways that she's utilized her community within her school. And Carrie, just to get started, for those who don't know you and to introduce yourself a little bit, can you tell us a bit about yourself, what it is you teach, what you're passionate about, and also what the transformation is that you're offering with your school and your courses?
Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie. I am an artist and educator. I've taught in schools for about 10 years, and then about 10 years ago moved to teaching online and shifted from teenagers to primarily adults. And I have a personal practice, like I said, so I make work. I have solo shows, group shows, sell my work. That's kind of an important component. And that kind of brings into the education side of things, me sharing my experience as a creator with my adult students who are primarily self-taught artists. They have had a studio for a while, so there's a level of commitment to their art, but they feel like something's missing in their work. They don't really know what's next. And I am helping them move from that place of like lack of clarity, not sure what to do or how to get where they want to go, to confidently expressing themselves through their art.
Cool. So are you teaching like business side of art too, or mostly just the like refining the art
Great
itself?
question. Yeah. So the community is called, like my overarching community is called Artist Strong. And I primarily focus on helping people kind of fill in their learning gaps. So it's more about foundational skill and then voice development with their work. And then I do separately have a Patreon, and that's kind of the only place where I dabble a little bit more in talking about how to start selling or exhibiting your work.
Why is it you started your community on Teachable? And especially if you're already familiar with Patreon, what was the reason to bring your part of your community to Teachable? And how important is it, or how is it functioning within your business?
I always wanted a community component, and I used to have a Facebook group originally for Artist Strong, and I had it for like 5 or 6 years. But I had a lot of people who would constantly email me telling me that they don't want to be on social media all the time. They don't like that it sucks them into other things and that they'd be distracted. And I really wanted to remove myself from that environment too. I didn't like the fast pace. I really wanted it to be more asynchronous experience where people don't feel this like rush that they have to respond right away to things. And so I was looking for an alternative space. And at the time, Teachable, I was using Teachable for my course, but it didn't yet have a community space, and Patreon was an option. And so I started using that. But people complain about having multiple logons. Like they don't like having to like keep track of all of the passwords and like how they sign into things. And so I would get annoyed. I would get like annoyed feedback from people being like, I don't like that. Like, I don't remember my Patreon username. I don't know how to get into this. I don't, what's my username for my Teachable? And so then Teachable offered some partnerships with other companies that had single sign-on options. So I actually switched and started using that, in hopes of like, okay, maybe this will help limit that. But we had still endless like tech issues where people couldn't still use the single sign-on to get into the other platform. And there was there was some support, but I never got answers. And my students were constantly saying they'd try to show up and they couldn't, and they'd give up because they were tired of trying. So when Teachable mentioned that they were having a beta for the community, I was like, please, like pick me. I really wanted my students to like get that support because they'd been repeatedly asking for feedback that they want it to be easy for them to show up and connect in a different way. And so I was really excited about that specifically. That was kind of one of the biggest obstacles I noticed my students were facing, is they don't want to have all these logins. They don't want to have to go to 1,000 different places. And so it's so much easier that they can go into the course, work on something in the program, and if it's not pertinent to the direct comments of that lesson, they can still hop on over to the community and post their art or get feedback or ask questions.
you were using a Facebook group before, not so much like comments in the courses and stuff?
I'd have a specific Facebook group for each course. And then I had a general Facebook community for anyone who wanted to be part of Artist Strong that would kind of hopefully funnel leads into my email list and then, people enrolling in my program.
So do you still have those Facebook groups as a means of capturing leads? Are you totally cool?
No,
Yeah.
I totally cut that off. I really have never found social media to be the main source of my audience or community. And I was tired of trying to force that when I actually have other like SEO, Google search, Pinterest, and YouTube have been more of service to me. So I wanted to spend time on the things that are working instead of things that aren't. And I would rather not be on social so much. As we all know,
Yeah.
it can be a rabbit hole of all kinds of things. So.
Somewhat technically, it's really cool for us to hear that this solved a problem we wanted it to solve for people. But technically, as it is in its beta mode, how does the community fit into your business? Like, is it servicing a course? Is it
Yeah,
in like
great
outside of
question.
that, or what's the structure of it?
So, because I had had so much feedback and had kind of played around with different communities, I knew that my audience was also getting a little fatigued with the changes, even though they hadn't been happy with any of them. So, I was like, how can I move people over in a way that feels not like this huge rush for me, that gives me an opportunity to play with the community space and make sure I'm familiar with it so that I can really support them. So, I decided I have one like signature program. It's called Self-Taught to Self-Confident. And that's where I spend most of my time. Those are the people that I try to enroll the most. And so I was like, okay, let's start off by creating several categories that are just specific to those students. See how I can like optimize and use that for this group of students. And then I had kind of in the back of my mind, then maybe I'd host a challenge or some kind of event for the whole community, and then create a category in my community space that's open to anyone who wants to be part of it. So that could be kind of like that overarching Facebook group I no longer have, and then still have specific private community spaces for my students. Right now, I have 3 categories for Self-Taught to Self-Confident because I'm trying to do a couple things with it. So one is called the weekly check-in, and this is one way that I'm using and encouraging them to get to the community. So every Friday, my students receive an email reminding them to get feedback on their art. They need to post their questions and their artwork before Monday because they have a call with me every Monday. And so I link that directly to the community category that's specifically about weekly check-in. There's a post by date for them where they then comment and add their questions, their feedback, anything they need. And so every week they're directed to that specific category. And that is specifically about that feedback and the weekly call. So then I also wanted them to have a space where they could just post like accountability things. Like here I am, I'm doing some of these smaller sketches. I don't really need feedback on them, but I wanted to show you guys I'm showing up, So I have one that's called Share Your Art, again, specific to only those students. There's a level of vulnerability that comes with learning a new skill or trying to strengthen a skill that you don't have the full confidence you want in it. So it was really important to me that they have like private spaces to share this stuff. So it's only other students. So they feel that they're kind of in a more safe space, I guess you could say, to share that work and be vulnerable. And then the third category for Self-Taught to Self-Confident is actually a wins category. I'm trying to make sure they're actually promoting and celebrating their strengths. And so either on the calls or periodically via email, or now even I have it integrated into the course where at the end of different units, I ask them to share a win or a big aha that they've had from the lesson directly to the community space. And that's kind of twofold, right? Like I want them to see that they're actually having growth and learning. I want them to see the benefit of what's happening. And of course, for me as a teacher and someone marketing my program, this obviously gives me a lot of wealth of information in terms of like, how am I best serving them? Testimonials that I could ask them, to use some of this for things like that.
How is operating community different from a course as a teacher and how you're facilitating? You kind of outlined the goals of these different structures, but how has that changed your approach to like where your business is going to go?
I wanted to make sure when students enroll in Self-Taught to Self-Confident, they have lifetime access to the program. And I wanted to make sure even beyond the confines of those lessons that they had a place to post and share their art and their growth and continued accountability. And so I really like that there's this element of community space where even if they tick all the boxes and do the whole program, which you can actually, because of the nature of my program, people take it 2 or 3 times sometimes. Like you can repeat it with a different medium or things and still grow from it. But it still gives them this opportunity to connect with other people, or for newer students to see what's possible because of students who have already gone through the program once or twice. Like, so I feel like it gives this promise of like what you could look like or your outcomes in the future can be. And it gives a space for people who are still growing, but, have reached new levels with their work to be curious about like what's next and have an opportunity to network with people who have taken the program and know where they're coming from. So that's kind of an important piece for me is giving them a touch point beyond kind of the confines of the specific coursework.
Do you feel like that's taken some pressure off you, or just like it's changed what you can focus on because your students are helping each other?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I feel like having also come from schools, like having taught in classrooms, there's always this like, I gotta be available. I gotta like show up. I wanna really do everything I can on my side to be of service to my students. And so what I'm hoping and what I'm working on is using that community to help me like slow down a bit. I'm saying this is more from like my own personality type than it is from
Mm.
anything that, Teachable or the community is offering. But it's like, that is, I guess, one reason I'm hoping I can continue to cultivate this community space to really let them take more of a leadership role. And that's something I've been striving towards, I would say. I don't feel like I'm there yet.
Are there elements of running a community that have surprised you as a teacher versus just like putting something out and then people watch it, having more of this interaction? Do you learn from your students? Obviously, you're enjoying it to some extent if you're persevering here. But yeah,
Yeah.
what does the community like bring to you in that sense?
In a community space, it's them deciding what's important to share. And because there's vulnerability around this artistic process and learning, I'd say that's something I'm trying to figure out. It's like, how do I continue to show them like this is valuable not just for you, but for the people that you're sharing it with, so that they feel this sense of shared connection instead of feeling like they're a silo. Which the course by itself can make people feel like, because not everyone goes back to read everyone else's comments or their replies, so you don't have that engagement that you do in the community space. So I'd say that's the thing I'm using this community space for, is to remind them like, you can do this and we can do it asynchronously. You don't have to rush every time. You don't have to immediately reply either. I want to like honor this like slower pace and say, check in once a week, see what people have been posting. And so, I'm trying to remind them I have a weekly email that goes out to my email list. I usually have a weekly blog post or video post. And so in that email, I'm also being like, hey, don't forget you've got the community. I'm trying to highlight a post someone's done to drive them there. So I'd say that's kind of the thing I'm working on, is helping them see the possibility for themselves and feel permission to show up, because it's like, well, this is just like a little measly sketch. It's not that important. Why would I post it? And trying to show them actually all of this is very valuable for everyone to see.
When you launched your community, what was your initial strategy, or how did you get people in there to start? Has that been successful so far? Are you still struggling to get people into the community?
So I mean, I did spend almost the whole beta, because again, too, initially with the beta, you could only let like either a class or everyone have access to it. So I consciously said, let's stick with my program. Let's make sure I can get these people in here. And since that's in place, and they get like a 6-month weekly email reminder for 6 months, and they can activate it again if they want. That always drives people weekly to the community space for those students. And since that's working, I was like, okay, well, how can I kind of like celebrate this? I have this sense of the system. How can I bring in the whole community now? What I thought was, okay, I already have some free courses as a way to kind of bring people into Teachable and get them to create the username and password and get a sense of my teaching. So why not offer a challenge hosting one of those classes, and creating a category that's kind of for everyone in the community that leads them there. So I turned off all the comments of that free course, And I released and I updated the videos, and I kind of made it a thing at the beginning of this year. So for the new year, it was create a unique artwork in 10 days. So it's 10 days of prompts, leading them to a finished artwork by the end of the 10 days. And they'd get a video on Teachable. And then I made sure that it was linked underneath, or, they can go on the homepage to the community. I showed them how to get to the community site and where we're posting. So people would post their progress and their daily activity to the new community kind of free-for-all area. And I'd say the participation was pretty good. I was happy with it. And it really did help create momentum. The next step for me is to make sure that I update the drip in that course, so that I can make sure that it's dripping again, but also still directing people to that community space, because people sign up for that class every week. Like maybe one to five people a week sign up for that class, at least currently. And so I want to help drive people there and use those courses. I have 2 of them, and eventually I'll host the other one as well. And that will help draw more of the people from my email list and from Teachable that are already part of my courses into the community more.
In that general category, it sounds like you have your leads and your paid customers interacting with each other.
Yes. So my students who are part of Self-Taught to Self-Confident, they also have access to the group that's free for everybody. So I call it like Artist Strong Community is the category. It's for everyone who's part of Artist Strong. Anyone can join. And what I'm reminding people too in my emails that are like, hey, don't forget you have this space, is if you're already a student on my Teachable account, then you already have access. There's nothing else you have to do. And I give them the direct link to the community space, and I've been either giving them prompts, or like I've written something and said, hey, I've got this question. I'd love your feedback on it. Just trying to draw people there. So in some ways, I'm navigating also that sense of urgency of like social media is like always going, always responding, versus my desire to actually have it slow down and be more like asynchronous for people, and a little more like I get to do this at my pace. That's important to me. And that's something I'm trying to communicate to them. And I think I'm doing okay, but it's also this like internal battle myself, still navigating like, well, should I reply right away? Like, how do I want to set the expectation and model it. And yet you still feel this pressure, like, am I doing it? Should it be faster or more efficient? Or should I have more engagement than I'm having?
Yeah, well, and it's a funny thing, right? Because we've been sharing around articles and stuff among the team lately, and there's a lot of movement of people to these closed communities because they're not like social media. People are working together towards a goal. It's positive energy. There's so many benefits compared to social media, but you are still fighting the multi-billion-dollar attention-grabbing machine.
Exactly.
And
That's
so
been
it's like,
designed to keep you there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's a struggle, but part of our investment in community is we do believe that people get burnt out in those spaces and that they want
Yes.
more and more to come to these. And we definitely think we'll see bigger waves of people going to these spaces.
And just like a book I actually mentioned in a conversation earlier is that it's called How We Gather by Priya Parker. And I really, really recommend that as a resource to anyone creating community, because it talks about coming from a place of values and how to make sure the choices you're making for your community are actually aligned with the vision and values you hold for your community. And I have to say, just even that, like you could listen to a podcast of her talking about the book if you're not a reader, but like understanding that for me has also been how and why I've framed and started developing the community the way I have, because I am thinking like, I don't want it to be this constant rush that they feel like they have to check 5 times a day. I want them to know that this can be mindful, because I want them in the studio painting. I don't want them to spend their whole time on their computer. I'm here trying to help them paint or draw or make whatever art they want to make. So how do I make sure that shows up in the strategies I'm employing? I want to make sure it's meaningful and it's adding to the quality of their life and artistic experience, rather than it being something that distracts them from their lives in some way, which, if we're honest, sometimes that's how we're using social media. And so like for me, every time I can check in and say, okay, people have asked some meaningful questions here, or people who have told me they've been scared to show up in other spaces and share their art have posted something, like those things feel like wins to me and affirm for me that even if it's not growing at the pace I want because of all of those big wins we're supposed to want for ourselves, that I'm doing something right.
Do you have a sense of how you communicate that success of the community to your students as well? Is it the same as you would have just said to me, or are there other ways where you're like asking for their help to get to that goal?
Um, I am sure that in videos I have talked about being mindful and making sure that they're using their time and in a way that aligns with their values. And that's something that's kind of part of my programming, I would say, even in the course, is like, let's be mindful about the choices we're making so we get the results we want to get. Um, I would say the thing I'm trying to do the most is when people post kind of without my impetus, is to actually highlight that. Like, that's what I'm trying to, like, if someone creates a post by themselves to share something or say hello, that's the one that I'm going to highlight in my weekly email to draw people there. So it's not just like me posting things, like it's about me trying to highlight other people in the community. And eventually, something I had done with my previous community space, the one that was between Patreon and this Teachable one, is I actually also have something that I'm doing to celebrate my artists, and I have an online residency program. So people can apply and they spend 4 weeks sharing through my blog their process, their art, their story. And I had a community space for the residents to connect, share their work, answer questions, and figure out how to kind of communicate what they wanted to in the 4 weeks of their project, whatever that was looking like. And so I'm hoping to integrate that as well. And that would draw people too, because my hope is then they could help be kind of like a mini leader, moderator in the bigger free community, showcasing their story and their work, leading people to the website of the work that they're doing, and again help fostering this connection and example of what it means to be self-taught, because for a lot of people that label is a negative. It's not something that they want to own or celebrate about their work. And I'm trying to show them that even if you don't um, associate with that label, that you have value, and there are many different ways to be an artist. And that's one of the goals of Artist Strong, is to help highlight and showcase that. And so that's kind of like a bigger picture. That's something I'm hoping to add, I don't know, hopefully by the end of this year, maybe, to help continue to foster that idea. And again, make it not about me, but make it about like, what is the possibility of art for you, and how are other people in the community showing up that way. And hopefully that also helps people who are feeling vulnerable feel like, okay, sharing this work and getting a bad feedback or feeling scared about it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the work. This is actually what creative process looks like.
Yeah, that's you are not building the easiest community to build.
Yeah, like when I really feel like um, they need less and less of my, like, prompt to show up and get there. When more people are posting without my encouragement, just to show up and share and connect, like those are things that I'm looking for, and will be a greater sign of like, okay, like this is getting, that's for me like the greater engagement and the greater like, we're starting to see kind of the results that I'm seeking, because I want it to be, I call it their community forum, because again, too, I think this idea of a forum shows that there's a slower pace, and that you can go there when you want to, and it's still about connection, but it's not this like, I'm going to post there and get an immediate response in 2 seconds. And so for me, it is about being mindful, and I really want this to work, and I don't want to find a new community space. And ultimately, too, especially with Teachable having the membership options now, there's no reason eventually I couldn't move my Patreon over and even get rid of all of my Patreon and have everything in one space, and have a specific category just for those patrons as well. And so for me, the idea that all of it could be in one space, making it easier for my students, and just easier for me to help direct them to the resources of that I've created or that peers have created. I just feel like all of that will be more fruitful and easier for them to get results if it's all in one spot.
That's what we're hoping. That's what,
That's the goal.
that's the goal. But it is it's especially cool because I know something we've been asked a lot is like, can you have a separate community for different courses and all of this? And um, it's nice to talk to you because you are using it the way we are intended, where categories can be assigned to courses, but ultimately you're thinking about this place where all of your students can come in certain places and engage. Um, have you had any of your like more seasoned customers basically make a sale for you yet?
Yes.
That's so cool. I just
Just actually, like 2 weeks ago, I had a student refer someone, and yeah.
I did want to see if you could just very technically show us some of what you're talking about. So if you can share your screen. Um,
Sure.
and specifically for these like engagement tactics, I love that. Curious to see in the product how you built this chain of a free course that goes um, to the community and then how it supports those things. So the ways you're driving engagement from your whole school.
Okay. So here on the left, you can see my categories. And I actually have one called Start Here. And because so many people kind of want tech support, I've created like a little demo. I know that like how to create a post. I have something that lays out all of our community expectations for all the categories. And I'm trying to, all the terminology is different in every community space. So I'm trying to teach them like what a category is, things like that. So I have this, how does it work? How to stop or get email notifications. I want all of that to be somewhere, like if people are like, I don't know how this works, I can direct them there. So that category is more about like the technical, how does it work for students?
This
Pardon?
is not like a open or changing thing. This is just like the way to get them expecting what's going to happen in the space.
Yeah, yeah, it's meant to kind of be like an opening page of like, hi, this is why you're here. This is what it looks like. This is how you do the things in this space so that they know how to use it. And
Yeah.
so that is open to anyone who signs up. And then if you see here, I've got kind of 4 with the locks on it. Well, 3 that I actually use. And in parentheses, I put 4 STSC, that stands for self-taught to self-confident. So for my students who are in that program, they see the 4 STSC and they know that that means only they have access to those. And then our Otter Strong community category, if my computer decides to behave, is here. And so this is the one where it's kind of a free-for-all. I haven't decided yet 100%, but this is where I've led people to like community for the challenge. This is where anytime I have a challenge, I'm leaning towards having people do stuff. So like, people love sharing their pets or things about their art or people helping. So some of it's just like silly little connection kind of opportunities, but people love to share their studios and when they have little helpers, things like that. Like share works in progress. And here you see some of the stuff from the challenge in between and kind of interspersed with some other things. But a lot of people commented underneath one of my posts for the challenge. So that's something I'm going to try to figure out how to explain, is that they don't have to respond to my post, but they can in fact create their own separate post in the community.
You mentioned you're doing like live events and stuff. Are you running those through the community or you're still running those through the course itself? Like um
I
what kind of
updated the course with like new videos. So it was through the course. And then I turned off all the comments to lead them to this specific category. This is the one where it kind of looks the same every week. This is for my students where they get feedback. So, this is kind of more of a like, here's a clear space where you can get feedback for your art. So I have that post, and then they post underneath any answers from questions they've had. They might refer back to lessons, and then they post their work to get feedback. I did a test I also do like a tutorial for onboarding for students to show them how to do all these things. And so I do a demo. So that was, that was me demoing. Um, I think starting small and using it for one specific thing to start really helped me be confident about how to run the space and utilize it in a way that really is of service to my students, because I could get feedback. Like right now, I think I currently have just under 80 students in that program. So for me, like, it's a small enough number that they can give me feedback, and they're all paying customers. So obviously their feedback is really helpful for me, knowing what other paid customers would want of the community and spaces. And so that gives me so much feedback and support in terms of understanding like how to then format the free space to draw more people like my students, because obviously I know those are the people I can get results for. So I want to help and do everything I can to demonstrate to people that that's the kind of person I'm looking for, right? Because those are the people I can help. So for me, that starting small and kind of picking one course or one thing was really helpful. And then running the challenge to kind of onboard and unveil the new like free community space for everybody really did help get the ball rolling and help me have to stay a little more accountable to remembering to do like a little check-in or some prompts to get things going, because initially after you have the momentum of a challenge, you need to have some strategies in place to help keep people showing up so that they don't forget, because when there's a challenge they have tasks and they know they need to share those things. And so I really think thinking about like the challenge and then the after, right? However you unveil the community, like what are you going to do to maintain, and understand too that again, like, you know, the challenge gave me lots of energy and lots of like posts every day and people were replying, so it was a little faster, and then it gets really quiet after and you're like, am I doing this right? Like, is something wrong? But no, it's like, this is the slower pace again that I've asked for, right? So like I really think knowing that you have a strategy in place and trusting it is really important, because you can then again second guess yourself if you're not thinking back to like, what was the goal of this? How is this aligned to supporting the people in this community? And what am I doing to make sure that I'm still sticking to those values?
Thank you so much, Carrie, for spending your time with us and sharing how your community works and the challenges. We really appreciate it. It is a challenge, but we appreciate and are invested in helping creators create these spaces that are unique from social media and have a focused effort. So it's really fun to talk to you. Wish you all the luck in your next year growing this engagement, and especially moving Patreon over to Teachable when you get the chance. But thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you
us.
very much.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.